Hey guys, I hope things are well for you this afternoon. For us, we are on leave and we are in the state of Colorado. And the state of Colorado is very mountainous, very cold. It's lots of just beautiful, beautiful nature. I'm currently sitting outside next to this river. So the sound you hear in the background is the sound of that rushing river. And so I'm sitting here under a tree next to this river and enjoying being outside in nature. And it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So today, as we jump in here at the Institute, we're going to talk around this idea of failure. And the truth is that everyone will fail. Like there's no one who hasn't ever, except Jesus. Other than him, everyone has failed. Now the beauty of it is you will learn from your failure. That is the amazing thing about failure. Well, let me put it this way. You can learn from your failure. It is an amazing teacher, failure is. So it all depends on how we look at it. So today we're going to dig into what this kind of means for us as we kind of look at failure in a little different light. You know, I'm not sure how much you understand about building muscle, but when you see these guys that are really big muscles and you know that, they go to the gym and they work out, what's physiologically happening with them is they are building, or anyone who builds muscle, as you lift things that are heavy, you're actually tearing the muscle down. And the muscle is being torn. Little tiny pieces of the muscle are being torn as you are lifting the weight. Then what happens is the muscle then starts to rebuild, and it rebuilds stronger than it started, stronger than it was before. So it rebuilds and it puts on a little bit more muscle because it knows that, hey, I might have to do this again. And then you work out again, and what happens is you tear the muscle a little bit more in these tiny little pieces, and then the muscle builds on again, even bigger. So consistent working out, consistent lifting things heavy is going to grow that muscle a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger every time till you get to the point where the muscle is large. So failure is a lot like that. When we fail, what happens is it kind of breaks us down. It's difficult. It's hard for us. But if we learn from it, if we take it and we actually walk through this whole process that I'm going to talk about, what happens is that muscle of that we as our character is built back a little bit stronger than it was before. So there's three things that make failure good in our life. The first one, it's in this process is something we need to work out. The first one is to acknowledge, to just say that I messed up. See, here's the thing is some of us believe that we're only loved and accepted. We're only loved and accepted if we're perfect. And that is so not true. I struggle with this as well. So I'm right with some of you in that. And what we have to do is acknowledge that, yes, you know what? I failed. I messed up. And at work, it's acknowledging that to our supervisor and to some of our work peers. At home, it's acknowledging it to maybe your parents or your husband or your wife or your siblings. But just acknowledging that, you know what? I messed up. Now, you need to know that as a leader, the people that acknowledge that they messed up, those are the people that I actually respect the most. Not the ones that are constantly putting excuses forward for whatever they did. If you're putting excuses forward for your mistake, you need to understand from my perspective and from most people's perspective, and probably yours, you actually respect that person less than when they just acknowledge it. In fact, as the leader of Cherish, those are the people that I take note of, that I'm thinking, when it comes to leadership positions and people being moved into positions of leading and caring for people, those are the kind of people that I want as leaders at Cherish. The ones that acknowledge, you know what? I messed up. I failed. Now here's the second thing that you need to do, is we have to actually learn from it. Once we fail, we have to ask ourselves the question, what is the lesson that I'm to learn from this mistake? We have to actually ask the question. And then it's helpful is to ask the people around you, what can I learn from this mistake? So the first thing is you acknowledge you messed up. The second thing you do is you learn from it. You ask the question. Now, here's the third and most important part. Well, not about most important part, but the part that most people forget. And it's the adjustment. Now is where you either put a plan together to not let this thing happen again, or you make a commitment not to let this happen again. Or better yet, both. You make this decision, I'm not going to do this again, and you put a plan in place to make sure it doesn't. So let's say, for instance, you are constantly late for appointments. You're missing meetings. You're showing up late. You can acknowledge, you know what, I messed up. And then you can say, you know what can I learn from this? I can learn that it's important to keep time, to show respect to the people that I'm about to meet with. But now the third part is, what is the plan that I'm going to put into place? Am I going to start making a calendar and keeping my calendar up consistently, putting reminder warnings so my phone will beep at me when I need to be somewhere? Or am I going to talk to maybe someone in my department and let them know that, you know what, can you just help me as a reminder, maybe at the beginning of every day? Just ask me, what meetings do you have today? Just to help me think through, oh yeah, I have this at this time and this at this time and this at this time. But to put a plan in place so it doesn't happen. Because failure in and of itself is okay. Failure is good. What's bad is if we think the same mistake over and over and over and over again. Because what that means is you didn't learn anything. Because like I said at the beginning, failure can teach us so many things if we're open to it. If we're not, at that point, then we have wasted the failure because we've wasted the opportunity. So we need to acknowledge it. And then the second thing we need to do is we need to learn from it, asking the question, what can I learn from this? And the third thing we need to do is make an adjustment. Because like I said, failure is okay. Failure is good. If you planned and you prayed and you thought through it and then you failed, it's okay. You are never going to get written up. You're never going to get, a good talking to about that kind of failure ever. Now, should you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again? Well, that's probably going to come up in your review. It's probably going to come in your quarterly staff development review saying this is an area for you to develop and grow because you keep making the same mistake over and over and over again. So you're either not acknowledging you made the mistake, you're not asking the question, what can I learn from this mistake, or you're not making any sort of adjustment of after you've made the mistake. Now, one thing I hear a lot in Uganda from many, many people is, I like correction. I like to hear feedback. Let me tell you what I kind of think of that. I think most people are lying when they say that. Because what I also see is many, many people who get the feedback and they get very upset. They get very defensive. Or they listen to the feedback and they do nothing about it. So you can say you love the feedback, but I think that's an answer that most people just say because it's nice to say. You're supposed to say that. What I would love to see is people that say that, which is awesome to say it, but then they start making adjustments moving forward after they've failed. Now you need to know that I'm not doing this institute because I think a lot of people are failing and not learning from it. This is just, I think, a key thing as a leader is learning how to fail, learning how to grow from it, and then learning how to model that to the people you're leading. Your people need to hear when you mess up. They need to hear you, and they need to watch you look them in the eye and say, you know what, I messed up, but I'm sorry. And guess what? This is what I've learned from it, and this is how I'm adjusting moving forward. Imagine the power of that when you hear that from your supervisor. And then the way that you then now model that to you people who you lead, that will transform the way we work at Cherish, just with that one thing. Now, I heard a great story from someone who had shared that he was at a restaurant, and as he's leaving the restaurant, he walks by and he hears the server at the restaurant say to somebody who's just now finished their meal, he asked them the question, what could I have done better? An amazing question, and here's why. Because what this server is basically wanting, he's wanting continued improvement. And continued improvement is just good stewardship. It's just taking whatever responsibility you've been given and saying, I want to continue to be better and better and better and better and better at this thing. So when you ask somebody that, what could I have done better? You're showing that you believe that stewardship is a good thing and you want to make sure that you're continually improving and becoming a better person. The second thing this question shows us is that it's the assumption that I could always improve. He did not ask the question, could I have done better? He asked the question, what could I have done better? Because if you say, could I have done better, there's an opportunity for you to say, no, you did great. Which means the person who's asking the question could say, there's a possibility I did it perfect. But the truth is, that server did not do it perfect. There's always a place to improve. Always. And so when you ask that question, what could I have done better? You're basically saying, you know what? I always can improve. And then thirdly, when you ask this question, you're telling everyone that you are committed to serving people well. When you say, what could I have done better? And then you sit back and you listen, that communicates to the people you're asking that to that, you know what? I want to serve people and I want to serve people well. So I want us to constantly be looking how to be better, really better followers of Christ, ultimately. Like that is our goal. And in that, how can I be better at the job that God's called me to do here at Cherish? Now that also plays out at home. I mean, imagine asking the people in your family, how could I have done this better? You know, we have this weird thing that, oh, I'm the man of the house and I would never set myself in the spot of, opportunity because my children would disrespect me if I asked that question. I think that is complete nonsense. We are here to serve. And I think that if somebody disrespects you or respects you less because you have asked them the question, how can I serve you better? Then that problem is not yours, it's theirs. I mean, who are we trying to please here? If we're trying to please God and to be more like Jesus, then we're always asking the people around me, hey, how could I have done that better? Now, I know that's very countercultural. It's countercultural everywhere. But I know in our culture, it's difficult for us to ask that because you are stepping into a place of humility and saying, can you help me? If I've failed, can you help me to not fail again? Or if I don't even see an area where I failed, can you please point that out to me? Those are difficult questions to ask, but so mature to ask those questions. That shows great maturity to be able to ask those questions. It shows great humility to be able to ask those questions. So I want to encourage you today around this area of failure, this idea of failure. What I want you to walk away from today is just knowing and understanding that failure is not bad. What's bad is to fail in the same thing over and over and over again. Failure is actually good because that's how we learn. That's how we learn, oh, I won't ever do it that way again because that didn't really work. It's an amazing thing because it shows you the path not to take. Now, another great thing is that we can learn from the failures of other people. Why wait till you fail if you can look and see how someone else has failed or even failed you and realize that is not a good path to take? Because now you went to school, you learned some lessons from their failure. That's just clever. Why fail yourself if you can look it around and see, I see what they did. That didn't work so good. I don't want to do that. So I encourage you to just look at failure a little differently than you've looked at it up to this point. And I also encourage you to own it, to acknowledge it is the first point, to learn from it is the second point, and to make an adjustment. All right, I hope you have enjoyed chatting together today. We're going to head into breaking up into some groups, and I want to give you a few things to think about. First one is this. Is anyone perfect? We obviously the answer is no. Then why do we want people to think we are? So I want you to talk about that. Why do we want people to think we're perfect? Why do we have a hard time acknowledging that we messed up? The second one is of the 3 steps, acknowledging, learning, and adjusting. Which of those is the easiest for you to do, and which of those is the most difficult for you to do? And then thirdly, talk a bit in your group about this idea of how asking, what could I have done better, is really good stewardship. Ask in your group and talk about the idea of, or not ask, but talk about in your group the idea of how asking how I could do better is just good stewardship. All right, well, just know that Auntie Lee and I love you all and miss you so much. I know this coronavirus thing is a bit crazy. We are obviously working through that here in America for the sake of Uganda and Cherish. We're working through that here on our own. We've had schools canceled. Luke and Sarah are getting married April 5th, and that event is also looking to possibly be canceled. So we're having these things that are happening. Grocery stores, they're supermarkets, they're getting emptied out of food. There's a lot of fear and panic here, and people are a bit crazy. They're just living in their fear rather than living and trusting in a God who cares for them. So it's kind of this global thing that's a bit strange that we've never really seen before, as we've watched people react to this virus. So we're just going to encourage you to stay strong, encourage you to not fall into a place of failure as fear takes over and you do and say things you wish you hadn't. But yeah, we're going to be okay. God's going to pull us through this, and that's what He does. So I have complete confidence in that, and we can trust God to do so. All right, thanks guys. Have a great afternoon and enjoy discussing these things as some groups. All right, talk to you later. Bye.